Hi everyone, and we're live now. Welcome to another episode of Bots and Billables, and today I have a guest. So with me is Chris Bridges, who's CEO and founder of Tacit Legal. So Chris, thanks for joining. You're one of the firms that everybody is talking about and possibly afraid of. Is that possible?
Yeah, so we're an SRO regulating law firm. We've kind of got two parts of it, which kind of does all of the TMT work. Maybe, and the second half is a kind of, I guess, AI native service where AI is doing 90% of the work, checked by a lawyer and fully insured.
When you say AI is doing the work and you're doing this, are there areas of work or pockets of law that you're focusing on? Like, do you have a sector focus? Do you have a specific strategic direction?
So we literally do one thing on the AI native side, so purely contract review, specifically contract review on third-party templates. So kind of your typical kind of contract review service, but we provide the playbooks, so you don't have to kind of build them yourself. And then we also QA it at the end.
I mean, not want to talk about your competition much, but there was like Crosby making headlines in the Valley. Is that what you do, but with the tech coverage?
Exactly right. Crosby is probably the nearest thing to us, obviously US focused at the moment. But yeah, it's effectively the kind of same proposition now.
That's so funny. I have had so many conversations with people over the last weeks that think that this is the real change coming to legal. So it's not going to be as drastic as, lawyers losing work to AI, to clients, to other firms that are exactly as similar to them, but that there is going to be a newly found structure in a law firm that basically has a new approach to do everything better. Basically, clean slate, AI native, thinking AI first, but then bringing in human where human is needed, human in the loop for the, let's say, trust creating parts of the work and where you need the human expertise. I think most people think this is the biggest impact on the legal market, this type of organization. What do you think about this? Is this why you did it?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my three co-founders, we all started life together in one of the big national firms. We've always kind of believed in, we've always believed that the legal profession needed a lot of change. I think they needed to move towards productized services where possible. Obviously not everything can be productized, I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yeah, just came across, the typical kind of hurdles you would expect in a big law firm. So we were like, we're off, we're going to do it on our own. And yeah, that's kind of our purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the vision of this? What will you do in 5 years? What's Tacit Legal becoming?
I think we thought we'd end up having quite a few different productized services on the kind of AI native side. But honestly, the way things are going at the moment, I think we're probably much better just focusing down onto one thing. I think it's really hard to build a good service without that kind of focus. So yeah, for now, I think I kind of see the traditional side of the law firm just coasting along. I don't think it's going to shrink. I don't think it's going to massively grow. But the productized, AI native side, I think is our growth engine. And we're just going to really focus on the products that we've got already.
You have your own tech. You build your own solution.
Yeah.
Why?
We did kind of go down the route of thinking, can we white label something? Can we wrap an off-the-shelf service? I've done this before as well, but previous firm, trying to wrap something, but maybe it's got a pretty basic API. There's only so much you can do to kind of own the experience, and you actually end up running your service in the way that platform dictates, which really doesn't give you that much scope for innovation. So yeah, that's kind of why we decided to. And we started to do that probably about 2 years ago before vibe coding was even a thing. But I'm a developer by background, a lawyer and a developer. So it was kind of easier for us then. I think nowadays, 18 months on, 2 years on, control code, cursor, just made it so much easier to get started and also just be way more productive. So yeah, I just think we'll probably see a lot more people looking to build over buy, at least in AI native firms where they are constrained by traditional kind of government boundaries.
What are the things you do differently that you think define your success that are more than just, getting an AI tool, advertising it to clients, to come up with some pricing? Like what is it you're doing that is special that a bigger firm cannot do easily?
Yeah, I think big firms could do it. They just need to change change the way they operate in order to, there's nothing inherently difficult about it.
Okay.
But I think our big, I guess the bait that I think we're building is around domain knowledge, and more specifically how that domain knowledge is engineered. So we spend so much time engineering the hell out of our kind of playbooks, our prompts, so our clients don't have to. Because we've kind of got that, we control the input, we control the playbooks, we also control QA at the end. So that feedback loop is just crazy. It's the amount of the increased accuracy we're able to drive by owning that entire process is incredible. And the data we're generating off the back of it, I think, is our moat for this. It's the kind of thing where if we're ever going to get to the point where an AI service can be fully insured to the same level as a traditional legal service without humans in the loop, we need that data. And that's kind of what we're building over time.
I love this story so much because you're at the eye of the storm of the actual change. Like, first of all, contract review is a use case. Maybe a use case group because you can break it down into further contract types and situations and yada yada. But for me, it's a use case like category they're in. One that I believe is definitely not hypey. I think there is change. You look at the prices 5-7 years ago of how much that would cost you per contract to do in investing in the tool, training the tool, having the team, setting it all up. Like, very, very different than today, where I think we've gone down maybe 90%, 95%. Like, it's very, very different now. You have a need to do this. There's like a clear pain in the market that gets solved. And I think we've all seen the versatility of Gen AI in there to enable you to do things without the need for machine learning training. You don't need, like, the entire rigidity of, let's say, Generation 1 products is sort of gone. So I love the use case group because it's real. You build a business around that. What do you see working and what do you see not working? Like, when you're like standing there, is this for you, I don't know, like one use case category, you see others? Like, what is your view on the market? I mean, we talk also because you have a very clean and informed, but also sometimes skeptical view of the hype and what's going on, what is possible. So from your perspective, like, you're in the middle of the storm, building a business in an area where it's 100% Gen AI based. Like, without Gen AI, you couldn't do what you're doing,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, the difference Gen AI makes, I think, mainly in the build phase, because like you say, you don't have to train your own model.
What is the change that you see that is real, and what is the change that you see is not real? Like, you're seeing happening. Are there other use cases that are working? Are there other use cases that are overhyped? What, from your perspective, you're in the middle of the storm, what is the stuff that works?
Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but I would say contract review is the absolute sweet spot at the moment. And that is also why we're seeing so many contract review tools pop up. I think that, but that said, the adoption is still really low. You would assume from the number of contract review tools that every in-house team, honestly, I'd say less than 10% are. So I feel like the tech's here, the adoption's down here, and the hype's just way up here. So I would say, like, my hype threshold is contract markups at the moment. I would say just there. I think they're one step ahead where people should really be focusing. But yeah, that's my kind of very pragmatic view of where it's at.
I mean, I remember that we had interviews with salespeople that came out of contract review companies 2-3 years ago that were all having ridiculously high targets, like in the millions, and some of them were over quota. So I always thought that selling contract review software is basically like cookie cutter sales, like high margin. You just go out and say, like, I want to sell stuff, and somebody else yells, I want to buy stuff, and they just like basically write checks at a conference, and this is how it works. Turns out this is not how it works. You know, at Brighter, we have a tool that law firms can use. This is probably different than Tilder, but people can use it. And through that, I discovered that this market is incredibly underserved. Like, people are not doing it, and there's a huge potential to actually bring this to play. So do you think this market will change? Like, will people use it more? Will contract review be a standard, or will it always be something that is only done in the high value use cases because people are fine with the spot check DD and people not care? And basically the efficiency of doing nothing at all is higher than bringing in AI to play?
Yeah, so I think I'm quite bullish on this. I'd say low risk contracts, it's a question whether you should be looking at them at all.
Right.
Possibly completely autonomous AI is better than nothing at all, but I do kind of struggle with that. Like if they're really that low risk that you don't really care about the quality, why even review them in the first place? So like NDAs, no one ever litigates them, no one ever reads them. They go in the drawer. Why do we spend so much time thinking about NDAs? Just not worth it. Medium high risk, I think it's going to become pretty prevalent. I think biggest barrier to adoption for most in-house teams is not actually using the tool. It's the amount of work that has to go into using the tool. So, actually having a playbook that you're happy with, maintaining that playbook, constantly optimizing that playbook is not an easy task. I think big in-house teams probably do that themselves. And I'm talking like dedicated team size, but smaller in-house teams, like 1 to 30 in-house layers, is tough. It's not an easy job. So I think that's where products like ours shine. I think in law firms, I don't think these tools are being used much at all. I don't think they hear much about them being used at all. But yeah, obviously they can control the playbooks. But I guess the sweet spot for us is because we're so vertically integrated, we're able to control that whole feedback loop, which just gives a bit of an edge.
Right. The last question on the contract review part. Do you see every lawyer doing that also? Like, will there be a commoditized, basically, penetration of the market that everybody has to sit at their desk, or will this be specialized teams with specialized software or even specialized service providers like yourself?
I don't think there's ever going to be 100% usage across the market. It's just won't be, because it's hard enough finding the volume of a contract type building a playbook. There's always going to be those contract types where it just doesn't justify building a playbook. Also, if it's really high value, do you even need to automate it when you're going to do kind of full massive markup anyway? That it's going to be human led. So it's never going to be 100% adoption for sure. I think personally, it's a really useful like litmus test. So if you're on a high value deal, running it through a contract review tool to get like a really high level view of where you're at before negotiating, so you can strategize and whatnot. That's quite helpful. But I don't think we'll ever be at 100%. I don't think we need it. But yeah, I do think we probably get to 60, 70%. It's just the standard thing you do before you go into drafting or, marking out or negotiating contract.
Yeah. Let's zoom out a little bit. How does the market change then? So billable hour, will it be there in 5 years, 2030?
The age cross, I think the billable hour will be there forever. 2100, it's still going to be there.
Thank you. I do believe the same thing, but we find other voices in the market. No, good. Okay, thank you. Why do you think that? Defend the billable hour.
So, fantastic on the boutique side of the firm. I would say we're pretty bullish. We probably do 60, 70, 80% even fixed fees. But we still have clients that want the hourly rate. It's not like every client is saying, I want fixed fees, I want cap fees. Sometimes they just want the flexibility of an hourly rate. It's just, throw stuff over the fence, don't have to worry about approving a quote. There's also just certain work that you can't fix a fee for, and clients understand that. They have no issue with that. They'd rather just trust you to not rip them up than kind of spend ages arguing about scope and have we made the right assumptions and should X be in and X and Y be out. But I just don't want those conversations all the time. So yeah, I just don't think there's ever going to be an appetite for 100% non-billable hour. I think as a culture, it's bad. But as a pricing mechanism, I think it's here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're consultants, expert consultants, and this is how humanity measures consultancy value. If you can't go to output and outcome, and these projects are so diverse, right? We could argue on this forever, but thanks for your feedback. I tend to agree. What is changing until 2030? So we're like in 5 years, calendar blocker, July 15. What has changed in the market?
I actually think in 5 years, probably not much. I tend to think it's more like a 5 to 10 year thing. I think we're probably going to see quite a big disaggregation of services. So, your full service law firm isn't necessarily a full service law firm anymore. They're kind of a stack on top of other vendors that are doing more specialist disaggregated work like Tilda. But I think the big blocker to that happening and the real risk for firms is that they don't make the kind of cultural change to make that happen. I think we've got to get over the lawyer, non-lawyer, fee earner, fee burner thing. It's just a load of rubbish. The other skills in the room are just as important as the legal knowledge in the room, and we've got to get over that.
if you make an offer that is significantly lower than your competitor, you have a sort of significant loss in revenue in that market through automation. And you can see it yourself every day. And I think it's there as well. I have projects where people say, we need to make this cheaper because the client asked for it. And we need to make this cheaper by 50%. And if that is a big client and we're in the 6 digits, that money's gone. That money's gone. And you can't come make up for it bottom line. Like you can't leave the fruit baskets out or some stuff that makes up for that. It's not a bottom line you can fix. So how does that impact the market? There must be some. If you're successful, the market changes.
Yeah, so it all comes down to price elasticity, I think. So I think the right place in the market for traditional law firms or traditionally delivered legal services is price elastic service. You know, your corporate transactions, your big ticket things where there's only so many corporate transactions happen a year. You're never going to fully automate them. You're never going to make up for the loss of revenue. But by automating stuff, the real opportunity for the firms that want to productize stuff is the price elastic services. Like contracting is a great example. It's so prohibitively expensive to outsource contracting. People just don't do it. And often they'll either insource the work or they won't do the work at all. If you drop the price by 25%, it's feasible, 100%, 300% increase in volume that can more than make up for it.
Okay. I have a similar view. What is overhyped then? What is currently buzz and probably unnecessary buzz?
So I think the extreme end of the scale is probably agentic AI, but I suspect we're going to come back to that in a minute. I think drafting kind of markups. I think the time's getting there, honestly. I do think it is getting there. I just don't think it's a good thing for the profession. I kind of see, at the moment, AI should be owning identification. Like, what should we be looking at? Given what's being flagged, what knowledge do we need? Pulling that knowledge in, just kind of making that journey easier. But the actual bit that the lawyer should own is the remediation. Lawyer's been there, they've received a markup that's, an absolute sea of red line. You can't see the wood from the trees. You just basically throw it out the window straight away and you get on the call and you say, guys, come on, more realistic markup, please. Yes, I think AI markups, I think it's more of they drive the wrong behavior. And if anything, I think probably slow down deal execution speed, because you're probably then talking 4, 5, 6 rounds of negotiation instead of one. If you'd had a really surgical markup that only focused on the issues answered, and AI is just not there yet for strategizing, and it's also not there yet for the 3-word changes that have the biggest impact.
I'll have to share this. I share your very opinionated chart that I also saw and loved. You drew a mind map for people to decide whether or not they should use agentic AI for a problem. Chris, explain.
Sure. So I think before getting into the diagram, I just think it's worth zooming out. Developers are so much further ahead than lawyers on adoption of AI and use cases. Claude Code, which is best-in-class agentic coding agent, is not autonomous. Anyone who uses it, you'll see it's kind of going through, doing stuff, giving you what it thinks should be done. You say yes or no. It's not autonomous. It feels like slightly more autonomous, but not autonomous. Jumping to the point where legal could be fully autonomous agentic AI now, I think getting very far ahead of ourselves. But yeah, so that's kind of zoom out. I think ultimately it comes down to that very top question that you've got on the screen there. Does it actually matter? In legal, 9 times out of 10 it does. That's just the profession we're in. Why would people be spending hundreds of £1,000s in legal services if actually didn't matter? They wouldn't say. That said, I think in-house, potentially you've got some processes that can't be avoided, where actually maybe doesn't matter. So maybe agentic AI could be used there. But where it actually matters, I just don't think we can even get past the red box of most agents at the moment. If you can't measure accuracy, how on earth can you make a calculated risk decision as to whether you can implement an autonomous agent?
Good. Nice. Provocative, but I think 100% correct. I think there's a natural progression to get there because we started with the chat as an interface and people love that and they want to keep using the chat, but legal work is more than that. So you ultimately start adding functionality behind the chat and you ask the tool or the agent or whatever you want to call it to basically do the work behind the chat front end. And this is how you end up having semi-autonomous and mostly transparent steps that are running to get to a result that you normally would achieve differently. And being a workflow company, of course, we see everything through workflows, and we think that you would have to have a manual process build up that then basically runs with AI in it, but you wouldn't have the AI selecting the process it would do. But I mean, I understand. Like, so I can emphasize with how you get there. It makes a lot of sense. And there, have you seen use cases where this makes sense? So what are the use cases where you actually go through this and you're like, check. Are there legal use cases that make sense based on your graph?
Yeah, so I guess some of this comes down to how do you define agentic AI? Because I think there's a bit of like confusion. I'm really talking about fully autonomous agentic AI. I think on the in-house side, there's some pretty cool use cases for autonomous agentic AI. Things like, every big corporate's got 100 policies. Most of them don't get read, let's be honest. They don't get read. How can you service the right bits of those policies to solve a query quickly without kind of bringing legal in? Does that actually matter? Probably not, because people are probably ignoring those policies anyway. So I think that's a great use case. But that is possibly one of the only ones I've seen where I'm like, yes, I get it. Beyond that, I struggle. At least if we're talking.
I could tell you a funny story about this. Like a subset of these use cases, we have an agentic tool that allows you to turn a policy into basically a self-serve policy tool. It's basically a RAG combined on your policies and then gives you answers. Sometimes it cannot be accurate. Like there are some things where it's not 100% precise. You can do many things to the policy for this thing to be precise. You can like sort them chronologically, you can bundle them together, you can like create playbooks out of the policies that are being read. But there are some instances where you want to be 100% like, you want to be sure that it's always the same result coming out, maybe the same link being provided, like it needs to be 100% clear. And this is where people then start building out deterministic rules into the system just because they want to be 100% sure. Like as soon as this is getting used at scale in an org and more than 1,000 people use it, people get very nervous about the information being self-service. So I hear you, I agree, but also ironically, you're right, even in your own example, because as soon as this accuracy matters for like just a matter of scale in the org, people come back to being nervous about it.
Absolutely. And the answer to that question will depend on the organization you're in. So a big corporate is probably going to say yes, like 100% of the time or 95% of the time.
Right.
A scale up that is growing aggressively, compliance is probably lower down the priority. They're probably going to say no. Or
yeah. Nice, cool. Thanks. Thanks for sharing, Chris. Last question. What is something that we don't talk enough about? What is something that you think we should all focus on more because it's actually working?
In terms of tech or...
Yeah, or process or human or whatever. Like,
I think it's the age-old thing that people are jumping to tech before they even thought about process. There's nothing new to say there, particularly on that. I think people need to disaggregate their services, at least in their heads, before they even start thinking about really meaningful automation. I think as lawyers, we have to think about like a job, a matter as one task or maybe like 5 tasks or 5 work streams. When actually, if you break that down, it's like 1,000 tasks, you could automate a bunch of those quite easily. But yeah, I just think people need to disaggregate things in their heads and don't assume that you have to throw the same model at everything. So, a law firm could take, a big transaction, automate 50% of it, price that differently. And we haven't even got to this point in the industry yet, I don't think, generally, when we're actually thinking about pricing stuff differently. Price that stuff differently, your value on the kind of consultancy side with the hourly rate, and just kind of, break things apart rather than just assuming everything has to be treated as one hub.
Okay, nice. So commercial impacts before tech impacts. I like it. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining me and for discussing that. This is very insightful for everybody who thinks about what is the future of a law firm looking like and where could you start? Maybe at the bottom left where things are like high frequent and clearly ready and ripe for automation. You prove with Tacit Legal that is possible. Thanks for sharing the insights. I love to have your balanced view of somebody who actually, puts money where your mouth is and actually does the work there. So thanks for sharing, Chris.
Cheers.
Have a good rest of the week. Take care.